The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From Radio Beacon to Radio Beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The latest act of resistance is the op-ed published in the failing New York Times by an anonymous, gutless coward. You just look. He was, nobody knows who the hell he is, or she, although they put he, but probably that's a little disguised. That means it's she.
Oh, my God.
But for the sake of our national security, the New York Times should publish his name at once. I think their reporters should go and investigate who it is. That would actually be a good scoop.
Okay, so that's our current president right there, is what it is. A man that got up there last night and supported a man who pled guilty to assault, yes.
I'm also thrilled to be joined by Montana's terrific member of Congress, a true champion for Montana. And I'll tell you what, this man has fought in more ways than one for your state. He has fought for your state. Greg Gianforte, he is a fighter and a winner. He's a winner. Great.
Here's Greg Gianforte. This is the thing he pled guilty for.
And what we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
You'd like me to get the hell out of here, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
That's who Trump sticks up for. Guys who body slam Guardian reporters, journalists, right? He pled guilty. He paid $50,000 to a group that protects journalists and issued an apology. And he's being endorsed by the Orange Man as being a real fighter for Montana.
I'm also thrilled to be joined by Montana's terrific member of Congress, a true champion for Montana. And I'll tell you what, this man has fought in more ways than one for your state.
All right, then. So that's the current occupant of the White House. And today we saw a real president. I don't know how many people were able to, to grab a minute or an hour and watch President Obama, who is coming forward as a citizen of the United States. Because, past presidents don't usually criticize current presidents. It's not a law. It's not a rule. It's just typically past presidents don't criticize current presidents because even though they may disagree, even though they may not see eye to eye, even though they may have different governing styles, they step back and allow the president of the United States to be the president of the United States. But this man, who is the occupant of the Oval Office currently, is so unpresidential, so tribal, so petty, so small, so mean, and yes, so dangerous, that the former president of the United States came forward today and talked to the American people as a citizen of the United States.
This is one of those pivotal moments when every one of us, as citizens of the United States, need to determine just who it is that we are, just what it is that we stand for. And as a fellow citizen, not as an ex-president, But as a fellow citizen, I'm here to deliver a simple message, and that is that you need to vote because our democracy depends on it. Now, some of you may think I'm exaggerating when I say this November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime. And I know politicians say that all the time. I have been guilty of saying it a few times, particularly when I was on the ballot. But just a glance at recent headlines should tell you that this moment really is different. The stakes really are higher. The consequences of any of us sitting on the sidelines are more dire. And it's not as if we haven't had big elections before or big choices to make in our history. The fact is, democracy has never been easy, and our founding fathers argued about everything.
So this or... Oh my God, it just freaks me out. This or this?
You know, when Abraham Lincoln made the Gettysburg Address speech, the great speech, do you know he was ridiculed? He was ridiculed. He took the horse and carriage up from the White House. He wrote it partially in that carriage and partially at a desk in the Lincoln bedroom, which is incredible, by the way, in the White House. And he went up to Gettysburg and he delivered that speech, the Gettysburg Address. And he was excoriated by the fake news. They had fake news in it. He was excoriated. They said it was a terrible, terrible speech. They said it was far too short. It's not long. Many of us know it by memory. It was far too short, and it was far too flowery. It was too flowery, 77 years ago, right? Too flowery. And he died. 50 years after his death, they said it may have been the greatest speech ever made in America. Pretty good. Pretty good. I have a feeling that's going to happen with us.
Yeah, he's right up there with Honest Abe Lincoln, isn't he? He's right up there with a guy who actually decided to take the United States into a civil war to end chattel slavery. That's Trump. I mean, when I think of ending chattel slavery, when I think of justice, when I think of equal rights, when I think of equal protection, when I think of free speech, when I think of a free press, you think of Trump. Yeah, no. This was an unhinged rally he had last night in the Billings, Montana area. It was so amazing to watch, only because the crowd behind him kept being swapped out. Did anybody notice this? The people, I don't know how many people watch this, because it's very hard to watch because he repeats the same things over and over and over. He relives his election. He then goes and endorses some guy who's under investigation, or a guy who's pled guilty, or a guy who's cheating on his wife, or a guy who is, an abject racist, or a guy who is, sympathetic to the white supremacist movement, whatever it is. And that's who he campaigns for, right? And then over and over again, he bashes the press and, calls out Jim Acosta or calls out CNN fake news and goes through his rants. Used to be lock her up and we'll build a wall, but, he can't lock her up and he's not going to build a wall. So now it's all about fake news and it's about his election over and over. So it's really hard to watch. But last night, the crowd kept changing behind him. There was some people, it was pretty freaking amazing. There were some people in Billings, Montana. Thank you, Billings. Shout out to you. There was a guy who was being referred to on the Twitters as the guy in the plaid shirt. The guy in the plaid shirt. The guy in the plaid shirt was standing. Not only was he able to sandbag, that brilliant, stable genius Donald Trump, but he was able to get an over-the-shoulder key position on the podium with the President of the United States, because the President of the United States can't find anybody who supports him anymore. So it's like tickets are still available or we'll pay you. I don't know which it is. I have been trying to figure it out. But in Billings, Montana, a whole bunch of people were standing around the president last night, and they were either blankly staring at the camera, praying to God that being so close to Trump would not suck their souls out completely, while this man who's had a Woodward book call him, unhinged and insane, and, has got hundreds of hours of tapes of people saying, we have to snatch, we have to pilfer, we have to disobey orders, we have to take things off his desk, we have to, stretch things out so he doesn't screw up the entire global trading system, and he doesn't start a war in Pakistan, seriously, and then followed up by a cowardly. I gotta admit, when Trump says, that there's some sniveling coward, there is some snivel. There is a soft coup. I mean, it's so interesting. He said all along there's a deep state, but it's the Democrats. The Democrats have a deep state. Actually, no, it was projection yet again. The Republicans have a deep state. And the deep state has decided that this man is in deep crap, that he's deeply disturbed, and he's deeply petty, and he's deeply unreliable, and he's deeply, concerned with his self and not with anything else. And so they are trying to sabotage his administration by putting an anonymous piece in the New York Times, okay? That's what happened this week. And now, all of a sudden, he's being sabotaged by his own supporters, who are standing around him last night. The guy in the plaid shirt, according to, and yes, I read Elle magazine. Everybody goes, why do you read Vanity Fair? Well, Vanity Fair has some of the best journalism in the history of journalists. It really just does. Elle, yes, I like to look at, fashion. Not that I'll ever participate, but I live vicariously through the 6 foot, 20 pounders. I live vicariously for a brief moment. But Elle magazine had this amazing article today that identified this guy. Of all the people that are trying to find him last night on Twitter, Elle magazine has identified this guy as a guy named Jim Halpert. And I don't know if it's the same Jim Halpert that's on Twitter, because that Jim Halpert classifies himself as a father and a husband and a prankster. I just don't know. But this guy in the plaid shirt last night, he was literally replaced mid-speech, because he was able to sandbag Trump at his own freaking rally, standing over his shoulder. Like, watch.
Opposite.
This guy
got elected president. So let's say a Democrat gets elected someday. Hopefully it's a long time. But let's say a Democrat gets elected. And let's say we have a Republican House. We will impeach that Democrat, right? And then a Republican. We won by a lot. We won by a hell of a margin. That's a lot. That electoral college, we won by a lot. Okay, so we're in there. We've got the best employment numbers in our history. We've got the best economy in our history. You look at the numbers in every category, it's great. We're doing a great job. We're putting on phenomenal judges. And you take that, and you do. Then what you're going to have is you'll have a country that's going to turn into a third world country. Because if the opposite party becomes president, every time before it even starts, before you've even found out whether or not he or she is going to do a great job, they'll say, we want to impeach him, and you'll impeach him. It's so ridiculous. But we'll worry about that if it ever happens. But if it does happen, it's your fault, because you didn't go out to vote. Okay? You didn't go out to vote. You didn't go out to vote. That's the only way it can happen.
All right. So the president's uplifting words last night about the country have to do with how fabulous he is and that he's facing impeachment. All right. So watch this guy. Okay. Watch this guy.
They're fighting for us. It's an incredible, it's actually a beautiful thing. We've picked up a lot of support because at some point, this whole thing is going to be exposed.
What happened? Wirecast? Wirecast? Can we do it now? Hold on. Can we do it now? No. Okay. Anyway, this guy who has been identified in Elle magazine as Jim Halpert stood behind the president and mouthed F you and a whole bunch of other expressions across his face. Okay, watch.
They're fighting for us. It's an incredible, it's actually a beautiful thing. We've picked up a lot of support because at some point this whole thing is going to be exposed.
F you. He's being sandbagged by everybody. He's such a genius. He's such a good manager. He's such a, he knows everything about everything. And yet, all the people behind him, it was crazy. Even the ones that were wearing the red MAGA hat, they were all swapped out for new people. By the time this... I got to tell you, this Elle magazine writer has got to be listening to the show because he also put in his article about how Sally Field and Soap Dish used to go to the Passaic Mall and have Whoopi Goldberg scream out, "Aren't you so-and-so from The Sun Also Sets?" He put that in his article. So great minds think alike, got to say. But this guy and the whole row behind the President of the United States last night in Billings, Montana, were replaced one by one with perkier, blonder, whiter, more, enthusiastic. I mean, it was just so unbelievable. It happened over and over and over again.
RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, I just got to call your attention to this little tidbit here because this is off the hook. This is crazy. This is how Fox News, faux news, the real fake news, covered the president last night. I swear, what do you call that at WWF when they do it like this? What is it called, Scotty?
It's a shoot interview. A
shoot interview. I have never heard that because I don't watch the wrestling. I stopped watching the wrestling, with when Cyndi Lauper was involved with the guy with the rubber bands on his face. Remember that?
Captain Lou Albano.
Lou Albano, that's him, right? And that's when I stopped watching wrestling back in the day. I mean, what was that, like the 80s or something like this?
Yeah, that would be probably mid-80s.
Oh, now she's...
Early mid-80s.
And now my little girl there with the angelic voice, she does the commercials for, skin diseases and all that. It's like, Burt Reynolds died. We didn't even say anything about it yesterday. Sally Field said, she still, remembers him fondly. And, it's like, this is what reminded me. It was like watching Sally Field do, commercials for osteoporosis, right? And she's taking Bonera or something. I mean, who names these pills? I have no idea. Zeljans and Bonera and, Otezla and Toltz is my favorite one. Toltz. Who named Toltz? I mean, okay. But anyway, they did this thing last night after the rally where they stood there like it was WWF. Very presidential. Seth Hegseth or Pete Hegseth or whatever his freaking name is. This was sick.
Folks here may have seen an anonymous column written in the New York Times.
Oh, my God.
This audience would say that an attack on you is an attack on the people that voted for you.
Oh my God.
Are you any closer to knowing who did it and what should be done if you find out who did it?
Well, number one, the Times should never have done that because really what they've done is virtually, it's treason. You can call it a lot of things. But to think that you have somebody in all of the cabinet, so many people, as you know, they came forward, they're writing editorials. They're all saying, it's got to be at a fairly low level because so many people today, I was just coming out, and I see all the people that are saying such great things. We have a lot of love in the administration. And the White House is truly, as you would say, a well-oiled machine. It is working so well. And we have, I heard you say yesterday, we have thousands of people that in theory could qualify. So they take one person out of thousands. But what's unfair, I don't mind when they write a book and they make lies because it gets discredited. We just discredited the last one. We discredit all of them because it's lies.
What is he talking about?
I'll tell you, when somebody writes and you can't discredit because you have no idea who they are, usually you'll find out it's a background that was bad. It may not be a Republican. It may not be a conservative. It may be a deep state person that's been there a long time.
My God.
You don't know where. It's a very unfair thing. but it's very unfair to our country and to the millions of people that voted really for us. They voted for us.
What the hell was that? What is that? Why is the president doing WWF style interviews? Why is Fox News down there doing something? This is somebody inside the house. Don't go in the basement. The call is coming from the house. Oh my God. Okay, I want to show you what a real president looks like discussing the same thing.
Republicans who know better in Congress, and they're there. They're quoted saying, yeah, we know this is kind of crazy, are still bending over backwards to shield this behavior from scrutiny or accountability or consequence. Seem utterly unwilling to find the backbone to safeguard the institutions that make our democracy work. And by the way, the claim that everything will turn out okay because there are people inside the White House who secretly aren't following the president's orders, that is not a check. I'm being serious here. That's not how our democracy is supposed to work.
Thank you.
These people aren't elected.
Thank you.
They're not accountable.
Right.
They're not doing us a service by actively promoting 90% of the crazy stuff that's coming out of this White House and then saying, don't worry, we're preventing the other 10%. That's not how things are supposed to work. This is not normal. So these are extraordinary times. Mm-hmm. And they're dangerous times. Mm-hmm. But here's the good news. In 2 months,
yes,
we have the chance, not the certainty, but the chance, to restore some semblance of sanity to our politics.
Yay!
Because there is actually only one real check on bad policy and abuses of power. And that's you. You and your vote.
That is so freaking true. Most of what Obama had to say today had to do with how people, young people, don't vote. How people are never satisfied with getting better. They want perfect. They want perfect. They want it fixed now. I get that. He gets that. We all get that. Everybody who's involved in politics understands. But real change is frightening for some people. They're terrified. If you want to do a little experiment, I've suggested this to the women. Many times, because it's usually men who are so frightened of change, and yet they all want strange, but they don't want to change. Duncan Hunter's got 5 girlfriends. Did you know that? Duncan Hunter, this bastion of Christianity, now we're finding out that all the money he spent, $1,000 at a spa in Tahoe, was with a girlfriend, his wife's best friend. He also ran away with over and over and over again. These moral authorities are cheating on their wives with their wives' best friend. Okay, because they like strange, but they hate change, right? They don't want to change the wife, and then they'll say, oh, well, my wife handled the finances. Go prosecute her. Oh, that is cowardly, right? That is a sniveling coward. But then he says, don't you mess with my wife. Just like Ted Cruz. Don't you mess with Heidi, because that'll get me every time. I love Donald Trump. We're great friends. He's a great guy. I mean, it's just so sick. So sick, this GOP. They're phonies. They're front runners, but they're so afraid of change. And their followers are afraid of change. So I've suggested to women, if you want to do a little thing, just move the living room furniture today. Just move the living room furniture around, take his chair and put it, in a different corner. Put it in a different angle to the TV. Put it, in another room. Ooh, he'll just wig out. He won't know what's happened. He won't know dye your hair. My mother for 100 years was a redhead. My sister was too. They were redheads. They dyed their hair tomato red, and they could pull it off. They were gorgeous, right? And one day my mother came home and her hair was jet black. And my father came home and he was like disoriented. Something's different. Something's out of place. He couldn't play. A week later, she told him she dyed her hair black. Oh, that's it. That's what it is. Okay, men can't handle change. They just can't. But honest to God, man, this fear of change, this unbelievable fear that this man has been willing to sell to his followers is so it's so palpable. You could feel it. You can smell it. Everybody knows it. And that's why the racism works. And that's why the tribalism works. That's why the division works. It works because older white men are so afraid that if someone else gets recognized as being part of the First Amendment, part of privacy rights, part of free speech, part of, just being able to say anything, part of equal protection, part of the Fourth Amendment or the 14th Amendment or the 13th Amendment, somehow that means they lost something. It just means your wife moved the furniture. It doesn't mean you lost your chair. It's still freaking there. It doesn't mean you lost your wife. She just dyed her hair. It doesn't take away from you or anything that you can claim as your own or your rights. It doesn't. And this is what they play to all the time. They play to this fear.
Backlash comes from people who are genuinely, if wrongly, fearful of change.
Hello?
More often it's manufactured.
Yes.
By the powerful and the privileged who want to keep us divided and keep us angry and keep us cynical because that helps them maintain the status quo and keep their power and keep their privilege. And you happen to be coming of age during one of those moments. It did not start with Donald Trump. He is a symptom, not the cause.
Yeah, but he's a malignant tumor.
He's just capitalizing on resentments that politicians have been fanning for years. A fear and anger that's rooted in our past, but it's also born out of the enormous upheavals that have taken place in your brief lifetimes.
I mean, that's what they sell. It's what they tell you. But it doesn't take away any of your protections, doesn't take away any of your rights to recognize that we can give rights that were denied to people who also qualify for them. It doesn't take away anything. Change isn't going to deprive you of anything. It's not going to deprive you of your wife. It's not going to deprive you of your lazy boy. It's not going to deprive you of your television set. It's not. But they make you so fearful that somebody's coming for your stuff and someone's coming for this. And the truth is, these GOP people are literally transferring your stuff to other people by telling you, be very afraid of that guy. And that's why I always say to you, don't look down at people who are doing less well, because they're not your problem. Your problem is coming from people who are doing extremely well, people who can buy politicians, people who can write legislation, people who can not only write it but pass it and put tens of millions of dollars behind a Supreme Court nominee who is going to do their bidding, who is going to say that they are people, you are not. They can have their day in court, you cannot. They can pollute your clean water. You can't say anything. You can't go anywhere. You can't complain to anybody anymore. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolute bat lunacy. This is so completely ass backwards.
Call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Over the past few decades, the politics of division and resentment and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party. This Congress has championed the unwinding of campaign finance laws to give billionaires outside influence over our politics. Systematically attacked voting rights to make it harder for young people and minorities and the poor to vote. Handed out tax cuts without regard to deficits. Slashed the safety net wherever it could. Cast dozens of votes to take away health insurance from ordinary Americans, embraced wild conspiracy theories like those surrounding Benghazi or my birth certificate.
Not funny.
Rejected science, rejected facts on things like climate change, embraced a rising absolutism from a willingness to default on America's debt by not paying our bills, to a refusal to even meet, much less consider, a qualified nominee for the Supreme Court because he happened to be nominated by a Democratic president. None of this is conservative.
It's amazing. It's not conservative. What it is rich billionaires policies. It has nothing to do. I mean, conservatives are not conservative. There is no conservatism. There is no Republican Party. The Republican Party has been broken by Donald Trump, and that is the only thing that we should thank him for, is breaking the Republican Party. It doesn't exist. It's now the party of Trump. Unfortunately, the party of Trump are cowards. They are sniveling little baby cowards. They are terrified to say that the president has no clothes. They are terrified to say that the president is a lunatic, that he's an idiot, that he's an effing moron, as Rex Tillerson so eloquently put it, that they have to steal things off his desk, that they don't trust him, that he doesn't trust himself, that he has no deep thought process. He reads nothing. He reads absolutely nothing. Mike Pompeo was actually on Fox News when Mike Pompeo was, not the CIA director, trying to brief the president, and he said, he doesn't read anything, and so I have to give him like charts and graphs, and I got to figure out a way to, make him sit still. He's the most incurious person. Now all of a sudden, he's backing him 15 billion %. And the people in the White House have called psychiatrists. Did you know that? They did. You know that book, Duty to Warn? The editor of that book is a psychiatrist, and she said that she didn't say anything because she didn't want to, take away from the book or start a conversation about her. But she said that they had called her to review this president's, behavior. And so, she finally talked to the press and said, yes, they called me. And yes, they asked me, and I edited this book, and there is a duty to warn. And so I participated in this book. But the man is totally unstable. The man suffers from a thought, what do they call it? Some sort of a disease where he can't think, thought disorder. And that he's a extreme narcissist. And the pressure of being president on his personality has been so huge that he's unable to get out of it. I mean, he's unable to do anything. This is when he started going out and telling everybody what a stable genius he is.
I went to the best colleges or college. I went to I had a situation where I was a very excellent student, came out, made billions and billions of dollars, became one of the top business people, went to television, and for 10 years was a tremendous success, as you probably have heard. Ran for president one time and won. And then I hear this guy that doesn't not know me, doesn't know me at all. By the way, did not interview me he said he interviewed me for 3 hours in the White House. It didn't exist, okay? It's in his imagination. And what I was heartened by, because I talk about fake news and the fake news media, was the fact that so many of the people that I talk about in terms of fake news actually came to the defense of this great administration and even myself, because they know the author and they know he's a fraud. And when I saw some of the people say, and you look at some of his past books, he did a book on Rupert Murdoch. It was a terrible expose, and it was false. So much of it was false. I consider it a work of fiction. And I think it's a disgrace that somebody's able to have something, do something like that. The libel laws are very weak in this country. If they were strong, it would be very helpful. You wouldn't have things like that happen where you can say whatever comes to your head. But just so you know, I never interviewed with him in the White House at all. He was never in the Oval Office. We didn't have an interview. And I did a quick interview with him a long time ago having to do with an article. But I don't know this man. I guess Sloppy Steve brought him into the White House quite a bit. And it was one of those things. That's why Sloppy Steve is now looking for a job.
Oh my God, this man is crazy. He is literally nuts.
We understand your message, but some people ask themselves, will you be tweeting differently once you board the Air Force One? Thank you.
No, that's other people that do that. I don't. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. Go ahead.
This is what a real president sounds like.
They're undermining our alliances, cozying up to Russia. What happened to the Republican Party? Its central organizing principle in foreign policy was the fight against communism, and now they're cozying up to the former head of the KGB. Actively blocking legislation that would defend our elections from Russian attack. What happened? Their sabotage of the Affordable Care Act has already cost more than 3 million Americans their health insurance. And if they're still in power next fall, you better believe they're coming at it again. They've said so. In a healthy democracy, there's some checks and balances on this kind of behavior, this kind of inconsistency. But right now, there's nothing.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I mean, everybody sees it, everybody knows it. I gotta say that there was this article today about the editor of the book Duty to Warn. Now, the other author he's talking about, he's calling Michael Wolff a liar. Remember, he did Fire and Fury. Obviously, he's calling Michael D'Antonio a liar. Obviously, he calls the man who actually wrote The Art of the Deal a liar. Obviously, he's calling Woodward a liar. Obviously, he says whoever put the op-ed in the New York Times is a deep state actor, but it's his deep state. It's somebody inside his White House. Because remember, the New York Times knows the identity of the person, while we do not. Today, Trump was, screaming that he wants Jeff Sessions to use the Justice Department to root out this person and prosecute them for what? I have no idea. I have no clue. But he wants them called out. He wants them to root out the traitor. The traitor. Oh, my God. It's supposed to be 17, but I know it's not. I know it's not because they got renumbered. All right. Brother David.
Sister.
Hi. What happened to your house?
It caught on fire.
I saw that on your Facebook page.
And because of legal things, there's not a lot I can talk about it. But I'm alive. I survived. My stuff will be fine once the smoke is washed out of it.
Oh, Jesus.
And it puts everything into perspective, let me tell you.
That would do it.
It was a very old house. We'll leave it at that. This is not that old of a country. Thank you for playing the clips of 44. Oh, my God. You said it yourself, sister. Because I'm trying to be proactive here, when we have a history to look back on this terrible period, Barack Hussein Obama is going to look like a rose. He's going to look like a rose garden between two piles of fertilizer. And one of those piles of fertilizer is toxic. It's not even fertilizer. The scary paresis-ridden clown in the White House, is clearly being told what to say. For him at that, what did you call it, a world WWF interview?
Was that crazy? Did you? I don't know how many people lasted that long, because it was really a tough slog to get through that thing last night.
It was like something. It was also like at the Oscars when they'll pull people out after they've won the award. And it had nothing
the
to
seat
do with anything.
fillers. Yes, they were like seat fillers last night. I mean, there was this guy that was standing there. We all know about the guy in the plaid shirt. I mean, obviously that guy was. He was like, F you, and what are you talking about, and making faces. And then there was this other girl who was wearing a Make America Great hat, and they replaced her with a perkier blonde version because she wasn't playing along with the game. And the guy that came with her was also replaced. And then there was a guy sitting in the front row who had his arms crossed the whole time, wearing like a green T-shirt with a cap and sunglasses. And they replaced him with a guy in a black cowboy hat. I mean, this was the most amazing manufactured.
Totally manufactured.
I've never seen anything like it. And I was just watching one person after the other be replaced. This man is so managed. It's such a reality TV show. It's like people are props in his world.
Bingo.
It was really creepy.
As ever, being half Anne Frank and half Harry Tuttle, in spite of everything, I believe that people are really good at heart, and we're all in this together. Let me whoosh out the window on my cable. I do think that in 9 days, we have a chance to make a massive statement. It has to be a blue wave, though. It's simply, people have to treat this midterm like we treated the 2008 presidential.
I agree with you, and I think that we could do the House. I mean, I really do think we're going to do the House. The Senate is doable. Nobody wants to really say that, but the Senate is completely doable. We just have to win. We have to elect Governor Phil Brazen, who was the former governor of Tennessee. We have to get Beto in Texas, Beto O'Rourke. And him and that lying, sniveling sack of dew that is Ted Cruz, he's got to go. Yesterday, I mean, he showed you everything yesterday in the Kavanaugh hearings, Cruz did. He was like, he actually got Kavanaugh to signal to the American uber right wing.
I know where you're going, yes.
That contraception, that a birth control pill is abortion-inducing medication, and he would rule that way. Oh, it was very frightening. It really was. So we need Beto. We have to win Nevada and Arizona, and if we could do that,
we'll get parity back in the Senate.
We would have the majority of the Senate.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, we would actually have.
The term parity.
Yeah,
so there'd be the scale would go the other way.
Right.
Just one shout out for my soon to not be current location of Kansas. There is an amazing woman running for governor named Laura Kelly, who was the only woman on the Democratic ballot out of 9. There were 9. There were 8 men and her, and she got it. And so I'm just throwing that out there. I think we're going to see more and more women pushing forward as they should.
Well, you saw Chris Kobach as the grand jury is convening. Because
yes,
finally, Chris Kobach of Kansas, Mike Pompeo is also of Kansas. These people have been rigging the vote there for so long, and they finally got caught because they cozied up to Trump. Like I said, almost all these people would have gotten away with whatever it was. Their bad behavior was, doing whatever self-enrichment they were engaged in. They would have gotten away with it. But oh no, they had to go and get into Trump's sewer and get them. You know what it reminds me of? I don't remember what the name of the movie is. Maybe you do because you're good on movies. You remember the song "If You Want It, Here It Is, Come and Get It"? And it had a guy walking through a pool of poop to get money.
It wasn't Bulworth.
It was older than that.
It's an older movie.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's not the one with Robert Redford either.
No.
I'll think about it, and next time we talk, I'll know.
And all I remember, it was like the last scene of the movie, and the song is playing. If you want it, here it is. Come and get it. Would you walk away from a fool and his money? And it's got a guy in a suit walking through a literal.
It almost looks like chocolate. It's so disgusting.
It was so disgusting, and he would do it just to get to the money.
And that 0.001%. That's who's real. That and Vladimir are who are really rigging this whole thing.
I swear to God. So, go with God, Chris Kobach. Go with God to the grand jury. Papadopoulos just got sentenced, but he only got 2 weeks in jail and like a $9,500 fine for lying.
For him, it was a slap on the wrist.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like nothing. So they must have gotten something out of him to reduce his sentence to 14 days.
Exactly. Before I leave, quick shout out to the chat room. You know what to do. Buy a stinking podcast. Tell everyone you know to like and retweet.
Thank you for saying that. You know, I let the first of the month come and go because it was a Labor Day weekend, and I was right. Everybody, please, could you just dig, please? I just wrote the last check for the month, and you want to know what it is now? You want to know what it is? $16,000. $16,000. That's what it costs.
People are coming.
Please, people come.
I always love, always.
Thank you. I love you, too. And I'm so sorry about your house. I just want you to know, David, you have a whole fan base out there, too. Because, David's been with us for, I don't know how many years. He calls every Friday. He had been for years and years. And people saw that his house burned down. And, they contacted me. It's like when Trump says something stupid, they contact me. Did I hear it? It's amazing. But yes, I saw David's house. I wrote to David. But yes, please, everybody, I swear to God, it's $16,000 a month is what it takes just to write the checks. Just to write the checks. That's what it is. Used to be 10. Now it's 16. Yes. Who thought of that?
I think a caller came in and called in. Yeah, always a caller with that. Yeah.
Thank you, caller. Yes, that was it. And that was the last scene of the movie, right? Line 4. Is this it, Don?
Yes, it is.
Magic Christian, that's you?
Magic Christian, Ringo
Thank
Starr,
you.
Peter Sellers.
That was Peter Sellers. That's it.
It was a funny movie.
It was a very funny
I thought it
movie.
was hilarious.
It was hilarious. Well, thank you for that. Oh, I hate when I have a brain fart like that. Don, thank you, Don. Yeah.
/donate.
Mary had a little man. The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I just want to finish off, though. What Tester did to Admiral Jackson should never, ever be allowed. Ronnie Jackson is a great man. Ronnie Jackson has led a great and beautiful life. And to have lies told about him, I would never repeat what they are. See, in my case, they repeat them. I say, don't repeat them. They're terrible. They say, no, we're going to deny them. Do we love Sean Hannity, by the way?
What? See, this is the thought disorder that Dr. Brandy Lee remained quiet about for a very, very long time. And she is the one who edited that book, Duty to Warn. And she said, she didn't talk about this for a very, very long time. She did not want this to be about her. However, she briefed a dozen lawmakers from the House and Senate last December about Donald Trump's thought disorder, his disordered thoughts, his narcissism off the hook, the pressure that was making him cave in on himself. She said she briefed a dozen lawmakers in the House and Senate last December about Donald Trump's fitness to be president, but the lawmakers on Capitol Hill weren't the only ones that were alarmed by President Trump's erratic behavior, his troubled tweets, his bad temper. Apparently, back then, she said, 2 people in the West Wing contacted her 2 separate times on the same day because they believed that he was unraveling. She said, quote, I had not mentioned this before because I didn't want to confuse my role as an educator to the public. That's why, she was pressed by a reporter for the New York Daily News. Why haven't you said anything about this sooner? She said, I thought I would be more effective by retaining my public role than getting involved in either the treatment of those who were feeling scared or the actual intervention with the president. Around the same time, she said, a family friend of Donald Trump's contacted her by email, which means she has an email, that they were concerned that Trump was losing it also. And then she said, all of a sudden she noticed Trump on the campaign trail calling himself a very stable genius and like really smart. And it was right after Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury came out. And now Woodward is painting a similar picture. Michael D'Antonio also paints a similar picture. I mean, so many. Duty to Warn was the first best-selling book, right? And so while mental health professionals typically stay away from diagnosing public figures, they said that they have chosen to speak out because this man is president of the United States and they are really, really concerned. And when they read this op-ed about the president, where the first thing is, the root of his problem is his amorality, and the op-ed says anyone who works with him knows he's not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision-making, and he's facing a test to his presidency unlike any faced by a modern American leader. The dilemma, which Donald Trump can't fully grasp, is that many of the senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. Dr. Bart Rossi, who is a political psychologist, said it's clear that Trump has been exhibiting narcissistic behavior, and it's been getting worse as the pressures of the office mount and the federal Russia probe stretches on. Quote, I see someone who has real narcissistic problems. The problem is he is narcissistic to the extreme. He's self-absorbed to the point where he's only concerned about himself. The other problem is he has a thought disturbance. When Donald Trump says something, he expects others to believe it is reality, even if it's completely fabricated, because Donald Trump believes it's reality. He said his analysis is based on Trump's public statements and is made in the context of political psychology. He said, quote, we're in very dangerous territory. Now, that's what Obama said today, too. He said we live in trying times, scary times. It's also dangerous. It's dangerous because this man has never met an autocrat he didn't love. What has happened to the Republican Party? Obviously, their entire core principle was based on beating back communism and the evil empire and Russia and oligarchy and they were all about a free market, and everything's gone out the window so that they can follow this lunatic. Everything they believed in, except for the racism, gotta say. And, Obama was, he called this out really well. He said, how hard is it for them to call out Nazis and Nazi sympathizers? How heavy a lift is that?
We're supposed to stand up to discrimination. And we're sure as heck supposed to stand up clearly and unequivocally to Nazi sympathizers.
Oh, my God.
How hard can that be? Saying that Nazis are bad.
How hard can that be? That's the sick, twisted, horrible part of the cowardly GOP these days. That when the president said what he said about Charlotte, they were quiet. When the president says what he says in Helsinki about Vladimir Putin, he has no reason to meddle in our elections. So why would he do it? Oh, I meant, why wouldn't he do it? Or I meant something else. I mean, they stay quiet. They put up, they transferred $1 trillion worth of our wealth to people who are already obscenely wealthy, and then start screaming about what a great job they're doing over and over and over again. I mean, and now they've got Brett Kavanaugh, who, admits yesterday that birth control is an abortion-inducing drug, and Ted Cruz is asking for the women's vote in Texas.
Another case you were involved in as a judge is you wrote a dissent from denial of rehearing en banc in the Priest for Life case.
Priests for Life.
Can you tell this committee about that case and your opinion there?
That was a group that was being forced to provide certain kind of health coverage over their religious objection to their employees. And under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the question was, first, was this a substantial burden on their religious exercise? And it seemed to me quite clearly it was. It was a technical matter of filling out a form in that case, but that they said filling out the form would make them complicit in the provision of the abortion-inducing drugs that they were, as a religious matter, objected to. Second question was, did the government have a compelling interest, nonetheless, in providing the coverage to the employees and applying the governing Supreme Court precedent from Hobby Lobby? I said that the answer to that was yes. The government did have a compelling interest, following Justice Kennedy's opinion in Hobby Lobby, said the government did have a compelling interest in ensuring access. And then it came down to the least restrictive means prong of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And that prong of the act, to my mind, is an opportunity to see, is there a win-win in some respects? In other words, the government interest in ensuring health care coverage, can that be provided without doing it on the backs of the religious objector? So that's what the court's looking for. In that case, Professor Volok's written about that. And in that case, it seemed to me that the government had avenues to ensure that the coverage was provided without doing so on the backs of the religious objectors, and I so ruled.
I wouldn't be bringing up the backs of Catholic, altar boys and priests in the same sentence if I were him. I just wouldn't. Is there a religious objection to pedophilia that the Priests for Life? I'm just saying, I mean, this is just so unbelievable. And saying it's a burden on them to provide health insurance to people who work for them. It's a burden because they're abortion-inducing medications, this is just so unbelievable. It just prevents an egg from being fertilized. No fetus can beat us. You rape them, we scrape them. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. This is who these people are. These people never talk about anything that's really going on in the real world. Like there's a problem in the church with pedophile priests. And the Priests for Life need to have the burden taken off their backs. May I alter you, boy? Arch back and bended knee. Oh, my God. Oh. Always looking to take the burden off of the church, the burden off the church, the burden of... if we collected taxes from churches, we'd have about $92 billion a year more. Do you know that? Yeah, it's a lot of money. All right, Xavier in Los Angeles.
Hey. What up, Randy? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
So what's up? You don't bounce your boobies anymore? What's up?
No, I don't know. I just thought that everybody was over it.
Oh, yeah. So there's some more good news that's going to be coming out during the weekend. Are you ready? You took a vacation, 4 days off. Why did you do that? You can't stop. You got to keep going.
I did that.
Come on.
Well, when
Step it up. Step it up.
When I did that, nothing actually happened. And then I came back to work on the Tuesday, and the crap hit the fan. We had the Bob Woodward book. Then we had the op-ed in the New York Times. Then we had, this crazy, he's feeling bad, so he's got to give he's got to have one of these pep rallies to make him feel better. I mean, it just didn't stop Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and today. It's so unbelievable. But, the Kavanaugh hearing didn't start till Tuesday, and I was like, okay, it's going to be a tough week. But holy crap, who actually thought all this was going to happen this week?
I know. I have to tell you one thing. I have to one-up you because I did read Omarosa's book fully.
Oh, that
thoroughly,
was you, yes.
And I read it. So I know you're closed-minded. I'm just playing.
I know.
All right, but I did read it, and I just want to say, hey, we support you. Love Randi Rhodes, and that's it.
So in that book, does she have any stories about him being unstable or crazy or?
No, I cried.
You cried?
I cried.
She made you cry? Omarosa made you cry?
She did.
Why?
Because I met what's his name? The guy from Green Mile in L.A. The guy, come on, Michael, whatever, Duncan, whatever.
Oh,
I met him.
The actor, yeah.
Yeah, I met him, and he's a really good guy. And the turning point is what happened is she was tapped on the back on a real unstable person. She had a lot of death that happened. And real quick, that's when, he died. And she's actually a minister. And
I know she is.
And that's when, she was not in her right mind. And she understood that. And she understood she was in the cult for a decade.
I see. So she had a cleansing moment of clarity that told her that after working for Donald Trump on The Apprentice 4 times and then another stint in the White House, she finally had a cleansing moment of clarity. Is that it? Is that it? And it made you cry?
Oh, you know what? I'll call you back next month.
All right. Deal. Done. She's been around Donald Trump the whole time when he's calling people. He called Mary Matlin. He keeps denying that he doesn't use the words mentally retarded because obviously in this Woodward book, he says he called Jeff Sessions mentally retarded, and his response, his defense was, I never used those words. He called Marlene Matlin.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
When I came into office in 2009, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. 800,000. Millions of people were losing their homes. Many were worried we were entering into a second Great Depression. So we worked hard to end that crisis, but also to break some of these longer-term trends. And the actions we took during that crisis returned the economy to healthy growth and initiated the longest streak of job creation on record. And we covered another 20 million Americans with health insurance, and we cut our deficits by more than half, partly by making sure that people like me, who've been given such amazing opportunities by this country, pay our fair share of taxes to help folks coming up behind them. And by the time I left office, household income was near its all-time high, and the uninsured rate had hit an all-time low, and wages were rising, and poverty rates were falling. I mention all this just so when you hear how great the economy is doing right now, let's just remember when this recovery started.
Seriously, and Trump has been riding Obama's coattails for 2 years almost.
You like to use the impeach word. Impeach Trump. Maxine Waters, we will impeach him. But he didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him.
It's crazy.
We will impeach. But I say, how do you impeach somebody that's doing a great job, that hasn't done anything wrong? Our economy is good. How do you do it? How do you do it?
Our economy is good.
How do you do it? We will impeach him. But he's doing a great job. Doesn't matter. Remember that line. He's doing a great job. That doesn't matter. We'll impeach him. It is a hell of a place in Washington.
Oh, he's so self-absorbed. He's so concerned about himself. What legislation did this man pass that would do anything for anybody who isn't a billionaire or who doesn't make money off of money or who doesn't, funnel money through a pass-through corporation? Or who isn't, situated in a place where they will benefit the top 0.1% from this tax cut. I mean, we're paying. This is socialism exactly backwards. I can't tell you this enough. So we're subsidizing the wealthy instead of the wealthy paying their fair share and letting people enjoy the American dream of watching their children do better than they did. This is exactly backwards. They hate socialism, these, Trump people, right? They hate it, but they practice it every day. Every time they talk about the economy, every time they talk about these tax cuts, they are telling you that they are absolutely 100% behind socialism in reverse. The people in the lower 90% of the economy subsidize the people in the top 10%. That's what they think a good economy looks like. It's a good economy if you're in the top 10%. It's a great economy if you're in the top 0.1%. For everybody else, you can't keep up with the rising inflation. Your wages aren't increasing. They're flat. He keeps on saying these stupid things like you can't impeach him because he's going to take credit for Obama's economy. Really? Just ridiculous. I'm so glad that Obama came out today, to ask you to vote, which is really what he did.
And let me tell you something, particularly young people here. Better is good. I used to have to tell my young staff this all the time in the White House. Better is good. That's the history of progress in this country. Mm-hmm. Not perfect, better. The Civil Rights Act didn't end racism, but it made things better. Social Security didn't eliminate all poverty for seniors, but it made things better for millions of people. Do not let people tell you the fight's not worth it because you won't get everything that you want. The idea that, there's racism in America, so I'm not going to bother voting. No point. That makes no sense.
No.
You can make it better. Better's always worth fighting for. That's how our founders expected this system of self-government to work. That through the testing of ideas and the application of reason and evidence and proof, we could sort through our differences and nobody would get exactly what they wanted, but it would be possible to find a basis for common ground. And that common ground exists. Maybe it's not fashionable to say that right now.
It does exist. He's right.
In the last midterms election, in 2014, fewer than 1 in 5 young people voted.
Jesus.
1 in 5. Not 2 in 5. Or 3 in 5. 1 in 5. Is it any wonder this Congress doesn't reflect your values and your priorities? Are you surprised by that? This whole project of self-government only works if everybody's doing their part. Don't tell me your vote doesn't matter. I've won states in the presidential election because of 5, 10, 20 votes per precinct. And if you thought elections don't matter, I hope these last 2 years have corrected that impression.
I hope you've learned your lesson, and I hope you've learned it well. It matters. It matters that you show up. It matters that you vote. If you want your hopes and dreams reflected, if you want your policies, advanced, if you even want them debated, you have to show up. You have to vote. These numbers are pathetic. But I think that this whole, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas movement, this whole movement of young people, this whole movement of women, this whole movement of women of color, this whole movement of, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the woman who's running for governor in Georgia, I guess her name's Stacey Abrams. These are amazing things. These are a reaction to people saying, okay, I get it. The only way that I can get representation is if I become that representation, or if I support that person that looks like me or sounds like me, the idea that we don't even have debates in this country, we can't have a debate in this country because the president doesn't debate. The president is always right. The president knows best. The president alone can fix it. It's ridiculous. This was probably my favorite thing that Obama said because, well, there's two things that he said that I loved. Obviously, I love that he took credit for, taking us back from the cliff of a Great Depression when Bush left us. When Bush left us, everything was a mess. Everything. And Obama never said I inherited a mess the way that Trump does. What Trump inherited was a country that was put back together because the previous Republican administration had broken it. The previous Republican Congress had broken it. With deregulation and with tearing down Glass-Steagall and, Clinton did that, just to be accurate. But the mess that this man inherited, I remember when Obama was becoming president, I said, who would want to be president now? The whole country, it's just been torn apart. The banking system is in shambles. The insurance system is in shambles. Housing is in shambles. Nothing is, everybody's losing their house. Everybody's losing their 401k. I mean, people were hemorrhaging, middle-class people were hemorrhaging the few shekels that they had put away over a course of a lifetime. I know because I was one of them. I lost 40% of my retirement account that I had been lovingly putting aside probably since I was 28 years old. Because I'm smart. I knew to save for a rainy day. I was raised that way. I was taught to do that. And then, lo and behold, the value of my house tanks, my 401k tanks, everything about the whole world just imploded. And I had just left my job because I couldn't stand where I was. And on principle alone, I said, I cannot do this anymore. I have to do something for myself. And it was a perfect storm. And then Obama came in and restored some order, some purpose. Yes, I was disappointed that he did not prosecute these people, that I wanted perp walks. But one of the greatest things he said today was not just that you don't vote and therefore you're not represented, but also that we need debate in this country about the way forward. And I'm sure they debated him inside the White House about the virtues of prosecuting these banks versus bailing them out. How long would the pain last if we prosecuted them versus bailing them out? I am still on the side of prosecution. But here's what he said.
And we can't do that if we immediately disregard what others have to say from the start because they're not like us. Because they're white or they're black or they're man or a woman or they're gay or they're straight. if we think that somehow there's no way they can understand how I'm feeling, and therefore don't have any standing to speak on certain matters because we're only defined by certain characteristics. That doesn't work if you want a healthy democracy. We can't do that if we traffic in absolutes when it comes to policy. You know, to make democracy work, we have to be able to get inside the reality of people who are different, have different experiences, come from different backgrounds. We have to engage them even when it is frustrating. We have to listen to them even when we don't like what they have to say. We have to hope that we can change their minds, and we have to remain open to them changing ours. And that doesn't mean, by the way, abandoning our principles or caving to bad policy in the interests of maintaining some phony version of civility. That seems to be, by the way, the definition of civility offered by too many congressional Republicans right now. We will be polite so long as we get 100% of what we want and you don't call us out on the various ways that we're sticking it to people.
Yeah.
And we'll click our tongues and issue vague statements of disappointment when the president does something outrageous, but we won't really actually do anything about it. That's not civility.
No.
That's abdicating your responsibilities. But again, I digress.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna make a move. All right. So, whatever happened to debate in this country? Well, it's gone because you have a demagogue who he alone can fix it. His policies are the right ones, but nobody, will go along with him. People are snatching papers off his desk to keep him from enacting them. People are calling up psychiatrists to review his thought disorders, his disordered thinking. On the sly and in private, cowards are writing op-eds and putting them in the New York Times, but they won't stand up and debate this president.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
It was won because of countless quiet acts of heroism and dedication by citizens, by ordinary people, many of them not much older than you. It was won because, rather than be bystanders to history, ordinary people fought and marched and mobilized and built and, yes, voted to make history. Of course, there's always been another, darker aspect to America's story. Progress doesn't just move in a straight line. There's a reason why progress hasn't been easy, and why throughout our history, every 2 steps forward seems to sometimes produce 1 step back. Each time we painstakingly pull ourselves closer to our founding ideals, that all of us are created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. The ideals that say every child should have opportunity, and every man and woman in this country who's willing to work hard should be able to find a job and support a family and pursue their small piece of the American dream. Our ideals that say we have a collective responsibility to care for the sick and the infirm, and we have a responsibility to conserve the amazing bounty, the natural resources of this country, and of this planet for future generations. Each time we've gotten closer to those ideals, somebody somewhere has pushed back. The status quo pushes back.
Always. Because people are literally afraid that change means taking something from them. But what you have here with this particular party, I don't even know what to call them anymore, is they are taking from us to give to their donor class. That's it in a nutshell. And the only way they can sell it to the people they are literally stealing from over and over again is to tell them, well, you need to look down. You need to look down. It's the brown person down there, or it's the black person over there, or it's this one over here, or it's that one over there. No. It's these people up there that are taking from you to give to themselves. They are literally stealing your tax dollars in order to enrich themselves. That is ass-backwards socialism, and they practice it like crazy, and so they project onto the other party that they are the socialists. But truly, the GOP, the Republicans, the Trumpers, the Trump pansies, they are the socialists. They are the ones that are literally financing the very, very rich by asking us to subsidize them. And as long as fear works and as long as tribalism can be played, this horrible game of tribalism can be played, they're going to get away with it. And you'll just end up poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer.
And even though your generation is the most diverse in history, with a greater acceptance and celebration of our differences than ever before, those are the kinds of conditions that are ripe for exploitation by politicians who have no compunction and no shame about tapping into America's dark history of racial and ethnic and religious division. Appealing to tribe, appealing to fear, pitting one group against another, telling people that order and security will be restored if it weren't for those who don't look like us or don't sound like us or don't pray like we do. That's an old playbook.
Sure is.
It's as old as time. And in a healthy democracy, it doesn't work. Our antibodies kick in. And people of goodwill from across the political spectrum call out the bigots and the fear-mongers and work to compromise and get things done and promote the better angels of our nature. But when there's a vacuum in our democracy, when we don't vote, when we take our basic rights and freedoms for granted, when we turn away and stop paying attention and stop engaging and stop believing and look for the newest diversion, the electronic versions of bread and circuses, then other voices fill the void. A politics of fear and resentment and retrenchment takes hold, and demagogues promise simple fixes to complex problems. And they'll promise to fight for the little guy, even as they cater to the wealthiest and most powerful.
Seriously, dude, this is an old playbook. Let's see how old it is. Edward in Massachusetts.
Well, I've noticed you've been ragging on Nazi sympathizers again. I'm just wondering, as a
On
Nazi
what?
sympathizer,
I can't understand you. I'm sorry.
You've been ragging on Nazi sympathizers again.
Nazis.
And as a Nazi sympathizer, I'm wondering, when I lost my First Amendment rights, when did the people in Charlottesville who just wanted to hold a simple rally lose their First Amendment rights?
They lost their
point of view?
lost their right when they killed Heather Heyer.
Well. You keep lying
You
about
see, the thing is that your sympathetic ideology is a spectacularly failed ideology that always leads to violence. You have to realize you live in a country where all people are created equal. Everybody has the right to breathe free. If that's not an environment that you feel you can thrive in, then you can go to any number of countries where there are autocrats. You can go to any number of places where there's a dictator, and you can participate in their version of government. But here, when you kill somebody, you lose your freedom. All of them. All right. Diane in Florida.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
I'm a long time from 2000. I'm so glad I could get to talk to you.
Thank you.
So I'm a naturalized American citizen from Jamaica. And in Jamaica, you come out of the womb singing, get up, stand up. Everybody's political in Jamaica, right?
Right.
So 2 weeks ago, I come home, and there are these two young mechanics working on my neighbor's car, these two black men. And I'm like, hey, you guys registered to vote? And they're like, oh, no, we're not voting. It's rigged. So I said, let me tell you one thing. Black women are going to save you yet again. Number one.
I know.
Again, right? And I said, number two. Back in the day when Harriet Tubman's building the Underground Railroad, what would you say to her? Fill in the hole, Harriet. It's rigged. Huh? So I said, when the freedom fighters are fighting, you'd be like, what you fighting for? Put it down. Lie down. It's rigged. When Martin Luther King's marching across, turn around, Martin. Rosa, go back to the back of the bus. It's rigged.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on. You gotta fight. I said, let me tell you something. Those Republicans, they're dragging he, she, the old lady, and their dog, and they're voting every time. And they're voting twice. Because Trump's voter fraud panel, who did he find, right, committing the voter fraud? That
Chris Kobach.
Voted for him twice. Right.
Yeah, who's now
Right?
going to be indicted by a grand jury in Kansas. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But see, this is exactly what Obama was trying to get across today, is that if you don't vote, then there's a vacuum, right? There's this empty space. And, of course, the most authoritarian, the most, demagogic, the most, narcissistic, the most, willing to steal from you are going to fill that void. And
exactly.
They're going to listen, Obama keeps telling people it's not going to ever be perfect. Okay, we're an experiment that's trying to form a more perfect union, and each time that we choose people that represent our desires to grow and flourish, our desires to see our kids do better than we did, every time we show up for that, that's what we get. And then and then when we stop showing up for that, we get something else that sets us back.
And that's one of the things, like when Obama came in and he was, I'm just so mad that he didn't go all out and go Medicare for all. Because if he had done that, right? Yeah. If we had gone full progressive, Donald Trump would not be able to come back and promise the same thing that Obama said he was going to give to us, right? Or he was going to try to give.
You're right.
Because, when he said he read 48 Laws of Power, I'm like, I got to find what book this is. I got to read this book. I got to find it. And one of the laws of the 48 Powers of Laws that he read was, make change, but not too big. No, make big changes, because then you can't have a demagogue. I got leukemia, but God damn it, I'm not voting for no black man or for no progressive so black people can get a little bit of money. I mean, I argue with people at work every day. They'll tell me, oh, this welfare woman, she's got 5 kids and she wants more money. I'm like, yes, give her more money. Why would you not give her money to feed her kids? Stop looking at the woman on the welfare with the 5 kids. Look at the oil companies that's getting your $20 billion taxpayer money. That's welfare too, but they dress it up with a different name. They call it subsidies. That's what they call it. I know. Right? They're not calling it welfare, but it's welfare. So stop looking at the little woman that's living down the road with her $200 a month. I said, how is that hurting you?
Well,
just oil companies.
Just let's say this, okay? For people who are from the other side that are listening to us, if their wildest wet dream, like in the Priest for Life case, becomes reality and there is no birth control, are you going to give up sex? Because women are going to go back to the days when they had 13 kids. And either you're going to have to work 13 jobs to support these 13 kids, or... Randy. Right. Yeah.
Did you see that Kavanaugh thing today?
Oh, yeah.
Did you listen to that girl from Parkland? I was bawling in my cubicle, boo-hooing. That little girl from Parkland High School. And they want to put this crazy, redneck, racist, demagogic moron on the Supreme. He's a great guy. I don't care how great he is. He's not great to you.
Listen,
he's a black minority or
this is what happens when you marry intellect to amorality. You get Brett Kavanaugh because Brett Kavanaugh is brilliant, but Brett Kavanaugh is purchasable. He is somebody that can be bought and has been bought.
Malleable. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that is not what you want sitting on the Supreme Court.
No.
Okay.
No. And did you see his face?
Did I see
throughout the whole thing? His face, like when he's listening to them, like especially when Cory Booker was talking, like that face that he makes.
Well, he lies. He lies. Yes. He has lied so many times about so many things. He's lied about not talking to anybody over at Kaslowitz's law firm about the Mueller investigation. He lied about stolen documents that were stolen from Patrick Leahy, and he lied, to. Oh God, I forget which senator now, but he lied about, oh God.
I know what
you know what I mean?
But when they brought out that the racial set aside that he called that racial set aside,
a naked racial set aside.
Set aside.
Yeah.
And they don't want all those papers to come out so people can see who this guy really is.
Right. No, I'm sorry. We're just out of time. Plumb out of time. So I just have to say that the Billings West High School senior who stood behind Donald Trump last night's name is Tyler Linfesti. He was just having fun, he says. Buy a stinking podcast.